I'm Travis Jeffery, and this is Just Tack.
You are jacked in this film. Like, you are ripped.
I mean, the first response is, what are you talking about? I'm shit house. It was very self-destructive and very punishing. They're telling you to lose weight.
What?
It's just so hard to make sense of losing someone to something so unfair.
Before we get stuck into today's conversation, I want to thank the official beauty partner of Just Tack, beautyboat.com. They have supported us from the very beginning, and they are stepping into this new era with us. Whether you are looking for Egyptian Magic Beauty Cream, the By and Tan Luxe ranges, or their legendary Discovery boxes, they curate absolute Tier 1 products. For our long-time listeners, the legacy code is still active. Use BIN25, BIN25 at checkout for 25% off your entire order. Head to beautyboat.com today, and thank you for supporting the brands that support this platform. G'day, and welcome to Just Tack and Travis Jeffery. There's this idea of what it means to quote-unquote make it as an actor, and if you look at Travis Jeffery's resume, it genuinely looks like a dream. I mean, he's worked with Angelina Jolie on Unbroken. He's stepped onto massive Disney sets for Pirates of the Caribbean. He's done these epic, grueling Aussie war films like Gallipoli. Well, that was a series, but and Before Dawn. And he's done huge motion capture at the highest level for Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. He is operating at the top tier of the industry, but the reality of what it takes to actually survive those milestones is entirely different. In today's chat, Trav and I get into the brutal reality of a career that is still built on 99% rejection. We talk about the extreme physical toll. I mean, he dropped to 57 kilos to play a POW in Unbroken, and he was 115 when he was a teenager, to getting completely jacked for his new film Birthright. And we get into what it's actually like going to a 6-week Ape School, which sounds so cool. We also talk about something really close to both of us: the loss of our beautiful mutual friend, Diana, and the profound grief that then pushed him to step behind the camera and write, and then star in his incredible short film Dusty, which is now on YouTube, and the link is in the description. He is honestly one of the most grounded, hardworking, and genuinely talented guys we have in this country, maybe the world. And this chat is an absolute masterclass in just surviving the hustle and figuring out how to actually live a life outside of it and not get so caught up in it. But yeah, before we jump in, if you are enjoying the show, it would mean the absolute world to me if you could hit subscribe, follow the show, leave a review, or even just share this with a friend. It is generally the best way that you can support the podcast and help us keep having these conversations, because I really want to, because I really enjoyed this one. Anyway, here it is. No script, no character, just the real story. Travis Jeffery and Just Tack. How are you going, though?
Good, yeah. Back in Sydney for a bit, which is great. Just really enjoying being still for a little while and back on the ground. Enjoying the Sydney sun and the beach. And
no, it sounds awful. You're here in Melbourne where it's raining and cold now.
I'm flying down to Melbourne tomorrow morning, and my parents have warned me to bring lots of clothes.
Are you from Melbourne?
I am. I grew up in Hillsville. Out in the Yarra Valley.
I know that. Yeah. How lovely. That's a nice spot.
Very nice spot. Out on a cattle farm.
Oh, wow. So you're a full cowboy.
Full cowboy, yeah. So I know very little about wine, which I probably should, growing up in one of Australia's best wine regions.
From the outside, it seems like you're working like from job to job to job to job in so many ways. But is that a reality, or is that no, there's plenty of space in between?
There's always plenty of space in between. Filming something and then it coming out a year later or 2 years later, you seem really, really busy, but maybe you haven't worked since that job a year and a half ago. But I have been incredibly lucky and, always try to keep busy with my own stuff, with Dusty and we're making another short called Same Time Next Week, which I'm having a crack at directing. So even in between the acting gigs, which I've been incredibly lucky with, there's always something to work on and sort of have a creative outlet with, which is the reason I started writing to begin with, because there is a lot of downtime and there is a lot of sort of time where you're just waiting. The tricky thing about being an actor is you're waiting for permission for somebody to say, okay, you can come to work now. Whereas writing, you can just sort of do it whenever, at home, at a cafe, whenever you're free. So it's nice to have that creative outlet in between jobs.
Do you see that as like a defensive move or an offensive move? In like, are you trying to take control of a certain your capacity to work in that sense, or like defending your position to stay in the industry in that way?
Yeah, it just started as, I guess, offensive, being like, well, what can I do? What can I? How can I expand my skill set and how can I create my own work? But what I didn't realize is how much I would learn about acting from writing, how much of a better actor it would make me, from learning about structure and pathos. Being an actor can feel like a very isolating sort of thing because, you're in front of a camera or you're on stage by yourself with your scene partner, and sometimes it's easy to feel like everything relies on you, which isn't true at all. And when I started to write and to make things, it just really sort of gave me an insight to the whole process. And it took so much pressure off, rather than being like, well, how do I tell the whole story in this one word, in this one sentence, in this one scene? How do I, as an actor, tell this whole story? It's like, well, actually the DOP is telling the story too, and the lighting designer and the sound designer and the editor, everybody's coming together to tell this story. So it doesn't need to be just the actor, acting their pants off in front of the camera, which I feel for me takes a lot of pressure off. So that was an incredible sort of byproduct from starting to write, was just learning about the process and then learning that it wasn't all on my shoulders. There's 500 other people making this film or this show what it is. So that was a really amazing experience. And then there's a different feeling between stepping in front of the camera, doing your job, and then going home as to bringing all these people together.
What's helped you build up resilience? I mean, you've worked probably enough that you haven't had the massive gaps in between, but but what's helped you build up your resilience for those moments? Because I'm sure you've had jobs that you got really close to that were massive and you missed out on that kind of thing, and that's as painful, right? So what's helped you?
Practice, practicing getting those no's up the nose and nose, and
just get heaps of rejection, constant
just
rejection.
Heaps of rejections, just constant rejection, which is unavoidable in this industry. I've been so incredibly lucky and so grateful for all the work I've done, but still, my hit rate would be 99% no's. With the thousands and thousands and thousands of auditions we do, booking 1 or 2 jobs a year. Like, well, that's not, It's amazing because I think the unemployment rate's like, 97% for actors in Australia?
I think that's so generous.
Yeah. So even to just be doing a couple of jobs a year is so incredibly lucky. I'm so grateful for that. But you do hear a lot of no's, and I think it's taken such a long time. I've been, doing this for almost 15 years and finally getting to the point where starting to realize it's not personal. People always say, hey, don't take this industry personally. But you go, well, you've just said no to my face. I've literally put my face and my voice and me on an audition tape. It feels pretty personal, but it's not. There's a million pieces to the puzzle of why a role doesn't go your way.
How do you, and maybe you're not, you're just casting friends in the upcoming short, but how do you approach auditioning and that kind of thing from the other side of the lens?
So Dusty, I wrote Dusty, which is just we've just released after a couple of year festival run. So I always wrote it for myself to play, and then my partner to play the other character. Then Jeremy Lindsay Taylor, our director, is an incredible friend of mine. We did Gallipoli together about a decade ago, and just have always wanted to work together since. So that one was sort of pre-cast, and then I wrote the next one same time next week with the cast in mind. Jeremy and I wanted to swap. I wanted to have a crack at directing.
Oh, cool.
He was going to, jump in front of the camera. Hannah Divany, who's one of my favourite actors, she'd worked with Jez on a film called Audrey. So I knew sort of it's a father-daughter relationship in the film. So I was like, great, that's perfect. Very lucky to have worked with Susie Porter, She played the mum over the phone in Dusty, and then did a film with Susie last year. So Susie stepped in to play the mother role.
So it's just super incestuous, is what you're telling me. It's
100%, 100%. I'm starting to realize why directors work with people they trust and they have worked with before, because you go like, well, we have such a good shorthand, we have such a good relationship, and I trust these people with my life. I know that they will. I know that they're incredible. But when we move into feature territory with bigger cast, like I'm so excited to work with casting agents. Casting agents are some of my favorite people, and I've been very fortunate to get to do a lot of reading for casting agents, be on the other side of the camera and help actors when they're auditioning for roles. And it's just fascinating, it's just a different world, and the thought that goes into it.
Let's talk about Dusty for a sec. Now, obviously, we both, it's dedicated to Diana, a person I knew quite well. You knew very, very well, who passed away from cancer. How long ago now is it? Like
almost 10 years ago.
Almost 10 years ago. How much of the film is kind of autobiographical in that sense, or is it purely just an exploration of the grief that you felt through that period?
Yeah, definitely more of exploring the grief that I went with, to keep to not make a film about Diana, to keep her privacy safe, and but just took how I dealt with it, dealt with losing her, and which was in, if you've seen the film, obviously the most healthy way possible, just drinking and partying and numbing for 3 years.
Was the guilt element that's in the film there for you in real life?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think there's such a irrational guilt that comes with losing anyone. For me, anyway. A month before Dusty got into its first film festival, I found out my mum had leukemia.
Oh.
And I was over in Perth and couldn't get home for a month because I was finishing off Birthright. And I don't know, I think our brain tries to look for answers, and the easiest thing I think for us to do is go like, well, what did we do? What's the cause here? Was I there enough? Were we not? Especially with Diana, because she moved back to Melbourne with her family, and we'd just broken up a few months before. We were together for a very long time, and you just try to make sense of it all. And I think a lot of it is, for me, it was very self-destructive and very punishing, of like, well, I didn't do this, I didn't do that, I wasn't there enough. Your brain just, when you're trying to make sense of it all, can be a very sort of damaging thing, I think. And that's, I guess, where a lot of the numbing came from. It was easier not to feel than to feel. And that just, and I wasn't even aware of it at the time. I just thought I was having a great time. I thought I was partying with mates and that kind of stuff. And we were, and having a great time, but it was just going too far, and it wasn't for a few years until it sort of all hit me, and I was really unwell, and I'd put on a lot of weight and just feeling horrible. And I just remember looking in the mirror one day and going like, oh, wow, okay, yeah, maybe this isn't as much fun as I thought it was.
So it was a purely self-reflexive moment that triggered the change in direction for you?
Along the way, I'd had a lot of mentors and older actor friends sort of, and I didn't really pay much attention to it at the time, but were like, hey, dude, like, you okay? Like, this is, you're going pretty hard. It's like, no, it's fine. We're all just, we're just having a great time. But it's that thing of, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink sort of thing. You're the only one that can ever make the decision, I think, to change. You can't force somebody to change. They're either going to resent you, or they're just going to reset back to what feels comfortable at the time. And I think numbing and deflection felt really comfortable at that time, even though it was incredibly uncomfortable in reality.
It's a distraction via a different kind of pain, right? You're happy to deal with that discomfort as opposed to the other.
That's easier, and that makes sense.
There's a cause and effect that I can control here.
Yeah. It's just so hard to make sense of losing someone to something so unfair. Losing somebody who's 28 to cancer. Just doesn't make any. It's just hard to wrap your head around. And even 10 years later, you just go like, wow, It's so unfair. This person had so much to give and so much life to live, and
such an incredibly beautiful person too.
Yeah, absolutely. You just go, the last person on the planet who deserved something like that to happen was Diana. How I dealt with that was really where the story from Dusty came from. I wanted to remove it from a romantic relationship, because I feel that you see that sort of grief a lot, and make it a best friend, a platonic relationship. And sort of a big inspiration for that was a lot of my friends that knew Diana as well as I did, who loved her as much as I did, who were in as much pain as I was, but don't get as much people don't often check in on the friends, the best friends. So that's what kicked off the story.
Yeah, I think there was a huge power in changing it from that romantic relationship to that, because I think it allows it to be way more accessible for so many more people in that sense of a friend, rather than feeling like, because losing a romantic partner is a much, generally, I think, rarer case, whereas way more people have lost someone they know that touched them. And so, the film is really good, which is why I think I donated like $50 or $100 at some point.
Thank you.
So without me, it wouldn't have happened.
100%. That's why we're here. Thank you.
Yeah.
But you're right. Like, we got so many people that just chipped in $50, $100, and that's why the film exists. And we got so lucky, and we're so grateful to all the people that support it, because I know you were joking, but without you the film wouldn't exist, and without every single one of those people the film wouldn't exist.
We'll put the link in the description and stuff below. Definitely worth checking that out. It's such a beautiful little film, and your performance in it's
thank you
crazy good. So we like everything you do. So Birthright, directed by Zoe Pepper, first feature film. Did she go to Whopper with you?
No, we didn't. We never crossed paths at Whopper. I met Zoe only in the callback, the audition process. So we were talking about before. I did a couple of auditions from. I was in America at the time. Then came home and met Zoe in the sort of callback recall stage with Mulliner's casting in Sydney.
Actually, give us the kind of description of how you describe the film for everyone at home.
Birthright, it's quite a bonkers dark comedy, which is my favourite sort of comedy, as you know, if you watch Dusty. It's what I love. I play a character called Corey. Him and his wife Jasmine, who's about to give birth, have just been kicked out of their rental. Corey's just lost his job, so they have to move in with Corey's parents, who are these wealthy boomers. And as Corey and Jasmine's stay extends, Corey's parents are really worried that their disappointing son, that's me, Travis Jeffery, will never leave. And as their stay extends, Corey becomes more and more obsessed with their wealth, and it's, for me, playing Corey, it's all about that sort of moment in your life where you realize that the plan you've been sold for your whole life doesn't work anymore. This recipe doesn't really work anymore of go to school, get a degree, find a partner, have a kid, buy a house off one income, live happily ever after. So it's, as Corey's sense on reality starts to slip, it just gets darker and darker and more wild. So it's there's a lot of big issues in it, cost of living crisis and things like that, but it's also really fun. It's really entertaining. Zoe Pepper is such a genius. She's such an incredible writer, and really finds a balance between sort of comedy and heartbreak. And it is one of the most interesting scripts I've read in a very long time, which I was so excited to do it.
Were the overarching themes like the boomer versus millennials, the housing crisis, all that stuff present for you whilst filming, or is that more something that you can look at once the film was finished and observe from that thing?
We had 2 weeks of rehearsal, which is such a luxury for a film in Australia.
That's nice.
It doesn't happen very often. So Cody, the producer, really pushed for that, it's just so smart, just to really get us all on the same page, because it is a tonally a bonkers film. You know, you've seen it. It's just to make sure everybody's in the same world is really important for a film like this. So we knew the film we were trying to make and knew the things that we were talking about and trying to say, but then I guess you don't want to play ideas. You just want to play the truth of the situation between a son and his parents as it crumples. And then hopefully the bigger picture is, you know, the conversations that we want to start about the cost of living crisis and the generational wealth gap and things like that.
When you're approaching something as an actor, where's the focus for you? Are you focusing on the storytelling as a larger whole, which is, I guess, is more of a director's job, which is maybe something you're looking at more now? Are you just focused on the emotional truth of any one moment, or communicating to the other person? Like, where do you have a focus of where your success lies in terms of executing a scene or a film or whatever it is?
I think it changes for every film. I think it's a different sort of recipe and process for every film that I do. You know, Planet of the Apes was very, let's work out how to be a chimpanzee, and then we'll build everything else from that. So it's very physical. And with Birthright, I think since I started writing, it's given me a greater appreciation for the story and things like that. And I think for me now, part of my process is working on, well, what would Travis, the actor, know about this story? Sort of the interrogation, analytical sort of brain. Like, what are the themes? What are the objectives? What are the, you know, the stuff that we don't know as human beings that we're going about our everyday lives. You know, we all want something, but we don't really know what we're just kind of reacting in the moment. So there's that part of the process of like, well, what does Corey want? What's happening in his life? What's this film about? What's the theme? What's the structure? And then doing all that work. So then you can get rid of it, throw it all away. And then that gives me, hopefully, the freedom to then just be present within the scene. So sort of jumping between the two, understanding the arc, so then I can just be emotionally present in the scene with these other incredible actors that I got to work with. So it sort of jumps between the two, but it's always a little bit different.
And to switch to a different gear about that, you are jacked in this film. Like, you are ripped. Was that just a by chance outcome following the work you'd done on Planet of the Apes, or was that a conscious choice? You're like, I've got to have my shirt off a bit in this. I want to look good.
Yeah. I'd never lent into anything like that. So worked with some amazing PTs, Chief Braybon and his wife, Ems Braybon-Hames, who I got introduced to by Tim Franklin, a really great friend of mine, when we were doing a film before Dawn a few years ago.
Yeah.
So I went to them. I was like, "Hey, doing this film where there's a bit of nudity and stuff," and they were like, "Let's go. Let's get it done." I was like, "Okay." And I'd never really done anything like that before, and I'd always try to keep really fit, and Planet of the Apes kept me really strong, but I'd never, I grew up quite a big kid. I graduated high school, a couple of years of graduating high school. I was like 115 kilos.
Wow. I've always seen you as such a skinny person, basically. I can't even imagine you at that size.
Yeah, it was kind of a 10-year process to sort of change that. Just that moment in your life where you realize that you're not as healthy as you should be, or that you're overweight. There was a couple of things. One was I was working with somebody for some auditions for a drama school. And I had my auditions and I did really well, but I didn't get in. And I went back to this voice coach that I was working with, and I was like, "Yeah, the auditions went really well, but they said come back a bit fitter next year, and so I'll get a bit fitter." And he's like, "No, they're telling you to lose weight." And I was like, "Oh,"
which is also,
and it was one of those moments. Yeah, exactly.
What? What's it got to do with it? Anyway, that's a different issue.
Exactly. But that's it's this industry's full of it. But it was just kind of one of those light bulb moments of I just went like, "Oh, I'm a bit overweight because I was about 115 kilos by that point, and I'd never really thought about it. And other small comments of when you're playing footy and things like that. That all of a sudden I went like, oh, okay, well maybe I should start looking after myself a bit more. So, lost about 20 kilos in a couple of months, and then got into a different drum school, got into Whopper, and then the sort of physical nature of it. You're on your feet 9 to 5 days a week for 3 years, mixed with, for the first time, starting to look after myself and think about how best to look after my body and exercising, and that slowly took off sort of the rest. And then my first job, which was probably just before I met you, out of drum school, was Unbroken, playing a prisoner of war. So I really wanted to do my best to honor these men in these camps.
The reality of their physical situation. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think I lost about another 20 kilos.
Yeah, I remember asking you what you did, and you were like, everything I ate was liquid. And I was like, what does that mean? It's like, it was just liquid. Like, did you blend a steak? Like,
no, I didn't go that far. I should have. I don't recommend it. It was, it was just having like a meal replacement shake 3 times a day, which is so unhealthy. It worked for what I needed to do, but now, you don't know what you don't know. Now doing Birthright training with Chief and M's, I know, there's a healthy way to lose weight. There's a way where you can lose weight and still eat food. But at the time I was young and I wanted to do my best, and, Angelina Jolie was directing, and you just want to do a good job and pay your respects. For Unbroken, I got down to 57 kilos, very unhealthy. So I
less than half of what you were like 4 or 5 years before that.
Yeah. So I was about 72 kilos when I started with Chief and M's, and I think we got down to around like 60 kilos by the time we shot Birthright.
Did you enjoy the process? Like you, it seems like you enjoyed the knowledge of that you're able to do it that way. But do you enjoy the process of hitting the gym in that way, meal planning, all that sort of stuff?
I do. I find routine very structure very good for me, and the way that I need to operate. So knowing that I was training every day and what I was eating and that sort of stuff, just made life a bit easier, guesswork wise, and that sort of stuff. And they're both really wonderful people, some of my favorite people in the world. So it was just like hangout sessions whenever we were training. Not for me, I was in a lot of pain, but it was nice just being in pain with your friends.
Yeah.
And I do really love the sort of high intensity training that they do. It's a mixture of weights and cardio, and it's sort of what I grew up playing a lot of football. AFL, not in the AFL, but AFL football. So I always loved the way training was for that, the short bursts and sprinting and that sort of stuff. So I've found with them a way of training that I really love, and it's nice. I find it almost meditative in a way. It's somewhere I can go for an hour a day and just focus on that. Don't have to worry about everything outside, and so it's something that I've continued to do since we finished Birthright, and something that has become an important part of me living a healthy life.
So you're even more jacked now, is what you're telling me. The
rig
is on point. The rig is on point.
To stay at that sort of weight for Birthright, like I think you have to have a good life as well, So,
yes,
but I'm really happy with the sort of base that Chief and M's have helped me build, and I've got a good starting point if I need to do it again. I know what to do.
It's a shorter road to get there if you need to.
A shorter road to get there. Less pain. Probably the same amount of pain. But
probably the same amount of pain, let's be honest.
Yeah, let's be honest. But, finding that balance as well is important, because you can't, I couldn't stay at that weight all the time and be happy, because, you want to have a beer with mates, or you want to go out for dinner and that sort of stuff, which you can't really do when you're trying to stay in that sort of shape. So that's been a great thing, an interesting thing as well, since finding that balance, being, more compassionate with yourself when sometimes you miss training, or you don't want to, eat the certain food and just giving yourself permission to enjoy yourself as well.
In terms of that balance, how do you find, as being an actor, you've traveled quite a bit for jobs here and there, and you've got, months away at a time, not only maintaining, your personal friendships and your connection with family, but then your romantic relationships. I imagine that's like, I've been very fortunate in the sense that, my wife, Amy, met me just before I booked Neighbours. And then obviously that was a steady income for 8 years, a steady job. I was in the same place, didn't have to go anywhere. But for you in that same time period, you're working consistently, but all over the shop. How have you learnt to balance all of that?
It has been a huge learning experience. I used to love the traveling is so much fun and it's such a great part of this job. But Planet of the Apes shot for Sydney for 8 months, which was the best thing ever. Coming home every night to see my partner, where I live in my house, with things that make you comfortable. It was amazing. I remember it's such an embarrassing thing, but my very first. Doing Unbroken, got to Brisbane. I'm like, oh my God, they've flown me somewhere to do a movie. They're putting me up in a hotel. Now they put us up in this hotel, and it was a nice hotel. And I got there, and reception were like, yeah, that's just a $200 bond. And I was like, oh, okay. I had to call my mum and ask her to send me $200 because I didn't have enough money to spend to pay for the bond. But, all that sort of stuff was fun, the traveling and the hotels and that kind of stuff. For me, it's structure and routine. Last year, I spent most of the year sort of traveling and it can be really hard, maintaining those friendships, making sure the communication's great with your partner, just making sure you don't forget the rest of the world whilst you're traveling.
I feel like in our 20s as actors or as young actors at that point, our whole lives are framed around the career and trying to make it work, and all our goals are to do with that, and that's the dream. And I feel like through, at least for me, in my 30s, it then shifts from being, rather than how can I do everything to get that dream, to like, how does that dream help support everything in my life as well? Like, how has that shift happened? But how is that change for you and how you look at your work and your life and everything in between?
Definitely in my 20s and, the first 5-10 years out of drama school, it's like I'm an actor and that's it. How do I achieve that goal, that dream? And, I've been so incredibly lucky with achieving my dream and getting to do what I love doing. But there still are all those downtimes in between. I don't think I shot something for a year or so after Birthright. Like there are these big gaps that you need to fill. And I started to realize that I needed to have a happy life first, and then acting would be a bonus, rather than acting, getting a job every year and a half would make me happy. So shifting those priorities and going, well, what do I love doing? What do I like as a person? While still chasing my dream, but the dream is not the be all and end all. Not defining myself as an actor, being a person first and going like, well, I'm a very lucky actor on top of that. And for me, that took away, and I think writing helped with this, it took away all the pressure of booking work, which takes away desperation. And then I started booking a lot more work because there was less desperation. And I guess it was more authentic.
Who did you discover in that?
I think I discovered somebody that, and it's still, booking work is still a huge part of my life and a big priority, but trying to find the person that wasn't validated and wasn't okay only when they got work, because it never sort of ended. I think it's human nature, this arrival fallacy of like, when I reach this goal, I will be okay, or I will be happy, or I will be enough. Which, whenever you get to those goals, for me anyway, it's not the case. You get to the goal and you go, cool, what's next? And then it just keeps shifting and shifting and shifting.
Ambition is a curse and a privilege,
Absolutely, absolutely. And finding that balance between the two. And, I've been so incredibly lucky that I have achieved huge goals. You know, if I was to go back to me as a kid and be like, hey, dude, we did Planet of the Apes.
Yeah.
You're like, what? That's enough. You know, that's like, that's the one job you ever need to do. But as an adult, you go, well, that's pretty cool, but what can we do now? Which is ambition, but also it's just not letting yourself stop and celebrate and be like, well, that was a really great achievement. You know, I'm proud of myself, of what we've done, because this is such a, the industry is all hustle, you know, and I'm sure you've gone through it. I'm sure you've had moments of burnout where I was talking to a mate of mine after Planet of the Apes, and I was like, why do I wrapped up, you know, a huge film, biggest film I've ever done, and why am I anxious? He's like, well, your body is conditioned to be like, what's next? You spent 10 years hustling in this industry of going job to job to job to job. Your body doesn't know that you've just done something that you should be really proud of and that you should celebrate. So working on celebrating those little moments and then finding those little moments outside of acting and finding the joy, you know, have a good day, try to have a good day every day. And I know it's not possible. So then that when you get the job, it's a bonus on top. And it can be really hard to find when you're busy or, you know, you're just sort of focusing on this industry or any job. It's very hard to work out what you actually like outside of it. You know, I came back, you know, spent the year with my mum, which was very busy, and we were just very focused on getting mum better. And, you know, her resilience and strength through that whole time was just incredible, you know, so inspiring. And then I went into the next year of working and I came back to Sydney. I was like, okay, great. It's time to try to rest a little bit. It's like, oh, I don't actually know what I want to do or like doing outside of work. So working out some hobbies, you know, working out what you like as a human being that fills your cup. That's not, just not this outcome-based career that we have of booking work or doing jobs.
What's the most non-actor industry thing that you find enjoyment in?
I've actually started pottery.
Bro, I made this.
That's beautiful.
Made this. Oh shit, I'm dropping stuff. I'm like, I'm with you, man. Yes.
I made this. What else did I make? That's the only thing I'm proud enough to share. It's a work in progress. I'm only 6 weeks. Made a couple of little bowls. Look at that.
Yes. They look great.
Thank you. Yours look great.
Oh, man. I wish we were in the same city. I'd I'd jump on the wheel with you. Oh.
But it's I'd love it. Next time I'm in Melbourne, we'll jump on the wheel.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's something that's, you know, that I've really enjoyed. But it's funny, just that human nature of like, I sat down, I was like, oh, I can't wait to start this no expectation outcome hobby.
It's got to be the best bowl ever.
I'm going to be the greatest potter of all time. It's like, no, that's not the point. That's not the point. But just get rid of your phone for 2 hours and not,
it's,
you know,
so
I go with
meditative,
mates
right? You know,
yeah.
And you're sculpting something with your hands, which is the literal dirt, and you have to fully focus in on it because the slightest little thing screws the whole thing up. Yeah, man. I'm all about it. Planet of the Apes, even Pirates of the Caribbean, you've been part of these big franchises, which, like you said, are these dream goals for any beginner or aspiring actor or whatever. Like, if I could just do that one thing, how did those things live up or not live up to your expectations of them in themselves?
I think they absolutely did live up to exactly what I wanted to be. You know, these huge sets, especially Planet of the Apes. It was just one of the most beautiful shooting environments I've ever had, with the team and the character and the movement work. It was just it was my dream job. You know, it was the most fun I've ever had filming anything. And I think what I'm really trying to work on at the moment is enjoying it moment to moment and staying present whilst on set, whilst in the moment. Because it's really easy to get caught up in the chaos of a set sometimes. You know, there's 500 people all doing their jobs, and, you know, it's, you know, with nerves and things like that, it's easy to not look around and appreciate what you're doing, how cool it is and how wild it is that I'm on these sets that I looked up to for my whole life. So stopping myself and going like, hey, look, like, put your phone away. This is really cool.
What was your favorite moment in filming Apes? Because I would have loved the physical stuff.
I think Ape School, all of it was great, but I think Ape School, the 6 weeks that we did of Ape Camp, Ape School, was probably the highlight. Just getting to know everyone, bonding with everyone, and just learning how to be a chimpanzee, and then together building our characters that then went on to make this film. That was a really special experience, and a really, like Birthright, a really smart decision for Joe, the producer, and Wes, the director, to get us all in there for 6 weeks. Because by the time we got to filming, we were all so comfortable. I'd never been more relaxed walking onto a day one of a shoot, because we'd already become this massive family. And usually, Aussie film and TV industry, you walk on a set day one, that's when you're meeting most people. Maybe you get a read through, but you could be meeting your on-screen partner for the first time and meeting the director for the first time. And it's scary. These sets can be really scary, and I don't think they ever stop being scary. They get easier because you start to know people. But to have 6 weeks together, building these characters, and then just developing this trust we had for each other, to then take that into filming, really set up the experience for the rest of the film. And, within week 1 or 2, the studio came back and they're like, hey, we're really loving the on-screen relationships, this friendship that you've created, which came from, you can act that sort of stuff, you can fake that stuff, but we were hanging out on the weekends, I'd show them around Sydney and just, having pizzas and beers and just becoming really good friends, which then translates onto screen. Yeah, the Ape School was a highlight. And I think it was because also everything, it was pretty mind-blowing all the way through, but none of us had really done motion capture before. So we're seeing all the technology for the first time, and Andy Serkis is mentoring us, and
crazy,
we're doing stunt training and learning to ride horses as a chimpanzee. And so there's just a lot of news in this first six weeks, a lot of awe.
Is with the motion capture, to me, I'd feel I just put the suit on and then I just do whatever. But is there a particular skill or technique that you're having to do at the same time?
Maybe I've never done it, not as a chimpanzee, so maybe it's easier as when you're playing a human, but it is quite restrictive in ways. You've got these big battery packs on your back, and you've got this helmet that's big camera in front of your face. But like anything, it then it kind of became about learning how to work that. Work so your cameras, so you're not hitting people with your camera and all that sort of stuff. So it became almost like a second skin. And I remember the first job I did after Planet of the Apes, I walked on the set, put my costume on, and I was going to shoot, and I was like, I feel naked.
Yeah.
I don't have a safety net camera right here. I don't have a big battery pack on my back. I'm really exposed. It's a learning process, and we did have, they did sort of integrate us into motion capture. We got to the last week of our training where they got us into the studio, and we put on, the outfits and with all the infrared sensors and the cameras and the helmets, because they can be quite heavy as well. So you got to work out how to look after your neck. And so, yeah, it began as a challenge, but it just sort of became part of it in a way. Maybe I felt more in character when all that was on, because I was like, oh, it's time to be an Naya now. But I love it. I fell so deeply in love with motion capture, and I would love to keep doing it.
With the chimp school, because that stuff would excite me. Was there any tiny little things that you were taught in terms of your movement that completely unlocked the difference between someone acting like a monkey and moving like a chimpanzee? There was
a really great thing. Elaine, our movement coach, and he oversaw the whole film, just about the eyes, eyes first, and then your body goes with the eyes, which is something that chimps do. And that, for me, was a big part of my character, incorporating that movement. And that it's funny, as you say, they're just little moments that unlock, whether you're playing a human or whatever. You go oh, that feels like my character. That feels like a chimpanzee. You know, the hands and stuff as well, just the way of holding your hands, and which we do lots of exercises of like where, you know, you're squeezing your fists and where do they land organically, and kind of working out, you know, talking about the anatomy and why things are the way they are, and which kind of help you. I guess that's like the analytical sort of part of your brain that we're talking about before, that's outside of the emotion. It's like, well, their arms are longer. How does that work? And then how do you feed that into your character, then moving into the emotion? But yeah, there was lots of tiny little things. One of the most amazing exercises we'd do this mimicry work. So, and this was very early on, so we're all just kind of pretending to be chimps, and we'd follow each other around in a circle, and your job was to then spot something that the person in front of you is doing and then amplify it. So it became, and then somebody would go behind you and it would get bigger and bigger until it was very sort of caricature-y and sort of just grotesque in a way and just bigger than life. But a lot of those little, like that's sort of where my hand movements from the film came, from watching other people and then being like, oh, that's interesting. Like, why would somebody hold their hand there, and then building that into a character's backstory? And none of that would have happened if we didn't have this 6 weeks to develop the characters.
What do you put your success on? Like, what do you in your core belief, do you think it's just because you've worked really hard, or do you think you've just got a certain X factor? Do you think it's because you're just such a great actor? Like, is there something for you that then you go, well, yeah, I've been successful because of?
Look, I think it's a real mixture of like luck. There is so much luck in this industry. You know, my first bit of luck was I graduated into the 100-year anniversary of Gallipoli, and I look like somebody who should have been born in 1915. That was incredibly lucky that all these productions were being made that I suited. But I'd also worked incredibly hard at drama school to be okay. So I think it's a real mixture. I think without luck, you don't get the opportunities. But then without hard work, I don't think you can create a career that is sustainable, or I don't think you'll have longevity. So I think you've got to have both.
And I'll finish with this question, I think, because it's my curiosity, because I think that this is such a hard life to choose, especially once you understand what the life in reality entails. So why do you act?
Because I've got no other skills apart from pottery, and that's barely a skill. There has been moments, you know, before Planet of the Apes happened, where I was trying to buy a house with my partner, so I took a contract delivering wine, you know, moving 300 boxes of wine a day, and my back was fucked. And you just go like, surely there's an easier way to be happy and earn money, and you don't have to put so much of yourself into everything.
And requires so much luck.
So much luck, yeah, you know. But I think when you love it, you will just always be drawn back into it. I love the collaborative element. I love making stuff with people, but I also love just entertaining people and making people laugh and making people moved and thinking about things. You know, growing up in the country, I think you really see how much people need distraction sometimes. You know, people just need to switch off at the end of the day. You know, I think it's a really beautiful thing. And, you know, if I can help somebody forget about some problems for a little while or think about something new, to me, that'll keep me coming back to it.
Dusty is on YouTube. We'll provide the link below. Give us the spiel for Birthright.
Birthright. Hitting cinemas May 21st around Australia. Come see it. It's bonkers. It's wild. You'll have a great time. It's important to support Aussie films, and I'm really proud of this film, and I'm really proud of everybody who's made this film. So I think it's a film worth seeing.
Well, thank you very much, Travis Jeffery. You're such a phenomenal talent, and just getting to hear you talk about it, like I think we're kind of similar, and we both just love acting. So talking about it is kind of just a fun thing to do. So I was so glad that you hit me up and said, do you want to have a chat? Because, yeah, it's been awesome. And, you know, when you do your next big thing, you're going to be coming back and talking to me about it, I hope so.
Absolutely. Thank you for
Yeah.
having me. And it's just so good to see you and good to chat.
Travis Jeffery, everyone, isn't he just so incredible? I honestly could have talked to him for hours and hours and hours there, and there is just so much to unpack in that chat. But the thing that really sticks with me is that idea of the arrival fallacy. In this industry, we spend so much of our 20s believing that if we can just book that one massive role, the Hollywood feature, the global franchise, we will finally just be happy. But as Trav said, your body gets so conditioned to the hustle that even after you reach that mountaintop, your brain immediately asks, okay, what's next? And look, I think that applies to so many industries and careers and not just acting. And it is such a massive lesson in realizing that your career cannot be your entire identity. You have to learn how to be a person first. You have to find your version of making pottery. I just held up pottery for everyone who's listening. You have to build a life that makes you happy so that when the jobs come, they are a bonus, not the sole reason you feel valuable. Now, if you want to see exactly what makes Trav such a powerhouse on screen, make sure you head to the cinemas to watch Birthright. It hits screens across Australia on May 21st. And please hit the link in the show notes or the description below to watch his short film, Dusty. It is a beautiful and deeply personal exploration of grief, and it's just really well made. Like, it's just, it's just a really good short film, really, just genuinely. Thank you for joining me for this one. If you got something out of the conversation, like it, hit subscribe, leave a review, and just share it with someone who might get something out of it too. That would mean a lot. I know everyone asks you to do those things, and it's just simply a click of the button, so please do it. But thank you, I'm Just Tack, and that was Travis Jeffery. See you next time.